The call came in at 5:42 a.m. on a cold October morning. The dispatcher's voice remained calm, but the silence that followed every sentence hinted that even she was struggling to process the information appearing on her screen. Multiple emergency calls from Briar Hollow Road. Possible homicide. Unknown number of victims. Caller disconnected. For the deputies of Cedar County, it sounded like another routine welfare check. Briar Hollow was a quiet rural community surrounded by thick pine forests and old farmland. Violent crime was almost unheard of. Most calls involved wandering livestock, trespassing hunters, or minor traffic accidents along the winding back roads. No one imagined that before the sun rose, the small community would become the center of the most disturbing investigation in its history. Deputy Daniel Mercer was the first to arrive. His patrol car rolled slowly down a gravel driveway nearly half a mile long before stopping outside a weathered farmhouse. The front door stood partially open. A porch light still glowed against the gray morning sky. There were no signs of forced entry. The silence felt unnatural. Usually, farms awakened before dawn. Dogs barked. Roosters crowed. Tractors started. Here, nothing. Mercer stepped from his vehicle, placing one hand on his holstered sidearm. "County Sheriff's Office," he called. No answer. Only the wind moved through the trees. As he approached the porch, he noticed something unusual. A single muddy footprint. Then another. Both leading inside. His body camera recorded every second as he crossed the threshold. The smell hit him immediately. Copper. Smoke. And something else he would later struggle to describe. The living room looked untouched. Family photographs lined the walls. Children's toys remained scattered across the floor. A coffee mug still rested on the kitchen counter. Then Mercer looked down. A trail of blood. Fresh enough to glisten. It stretched down the hallway toward the back of the house. He radioed dispatch. Possible confirmed homicide. Request EMS and additional units immediately. The answer came almost instantly. Units already en route. Mercer moved slowly down the hallway. Each step felt heavier than the last. Halfway down, he noticed deep scratches gouged into the wooden floor. Almost as though something heavy had been dragged. The blood trail became thicker. His breathing slowed. The bedroom door stood open. Inside, time seemed to stop. 3 bodies. 1 room. None appeared to have died where they were found. The walls were covered with blood spatter. Furniture lay overturned. A shattered lamp rested beneath a broken window. Mercer had worked fatal crashes. Suicides. Overdoses. Nothing prepared him for this. He backed into the hallway and quietly spoke into his radio. "Notify major crimes." His voice cracked. "I need everyone." Within an hour, Briar Hollow Road was sealed off. Crime scene investigators photographed every inch of the farmhouse, while detectives began identifying the victims. 48-year-old Thomas Hale. His wife, Rebecca. Their 22-year-old son, Ethan. There was no sign of forced entry. No stolen valuables. No obvious motive. Sheriff Laura Bennett arrived shortly after sunrise. A 25-year veteran, Bennett had investigated dozens of homicides. She stood silently outside the farmhouse for nearly a minute before entering. The crime scene technician met her at the doorway. "It's worse inside." He wasn't exaggerating. The violence suggested panic rather than execution. Broken furniture. Defensive wounds. Blood in multiple rooms. Someone had fought desperately. The question was, against whom? Lead Detective Marcus Reed arrived shortly afterward. Reed was known throughout the state for solving complex homicide cases. He rarely spoke unnecessarily. Instead, he watched, listened, waited. He spent nearly 2 hours inside the farmhouse before saying a single sentence. This didn't begin in the bedroom. His observation immediately changed the investigation. Blood droplets near the kitchen sink indicated the first injury had likely occurred there. Broken glass near the dining room suggested a struggle. Drag marks connected the hallway to the bedroom. Whoever committed the crime hadn't simply killed. They had moved the victims afterward. Why? Forensic specialists worked throughout the day. Every fingerprint. Every shoe impression. Every strand of hair. Every blood sample. Collected. Documented. Bagged. Outside, neighbors gathered behind police tape. Most had known the Hale family for decades. Everyone described them similarly. Quiet. Hardworking. Friendly. No enemies. No financial problems. No criminal history. Nothing made sense. Detectives began interviewing nearby residents. The first breakthrough came from 80-year-old Margaret Ellis, whose farmhouse overlooked the Hale property. "I heard shouting around midnight," she told investigators. "I thought it was coyotes at first." "What kind of shouting?" "A man." Then she paused. "And a little girl." Detective Reed frowned. "There wasn't a child living here." Margaret nodded slowly. "I know. That's why I remember it." Investigators searched every missing persons report within 100 miles. No child matched Margaret's description. Could she have imagined it? Perhaps. But experienced detectives rarely ignored witness statements, especially unusual ones. The forensic laboratory delivered its preliminary report 2 days later. 3 victims. 1 unknown blood type. None belonged to the Hale family. Someone else had been injured. Someone who left the farmhouse alive. Meanwhile, another discovery changed everything. Crime scene analysts recovered a partial boot print near the back door. Not a work boot. Not hiking footwear. A tactical boot. The same type commonly worn by military personnel and some law enforcement officers. Detective Reed immediately widened the suspect pool. Military veterans. Private security contractors. Former deputies. Anyone with tactical training. Digital investigators examined security cameras from nearby highways. Most rural homes lacked surveillance. Gas stations did not. Hours of footage finally revealed something. At 11:18 p.m., a dark pickup truck passed through Briar Hollow heading toward the Hale farmhouse. It returned just before 2 a.m. Its license plate could not be read. Its headlights remained off as it left the road. Whoever drove it knew the area well. Autopsies revealed another disturbing detail. Thomas Hale died attempting to protect his family. Rebecca suffered defensive wounds. Ethan had fought the attacker long enough to break several of the suspect's fingers. The unknown blood likely belonged to the killer. That meant the killer carried their own DNA away from the scene. It was only a matter of time before the laboratory identified it. Unless the DNA wasn't already in the system. 3 days into the investigation, investigators made a discovery hidden beneath the farmhouse porch. A discarded medical bandage. Fresh blood stained the inside. Detective Reed carefully watched as the evidence technician sealed it. If the blood matched the unknown DNA found inside, they would finally have the first direct link to the killer. No one noticed the man watching from the tree line nearly 300 yards away. He stood perfectly still behind the pines, waiting, watching. Then, as detectives loaded the evidence into their vehicles, he quietly disappeared into the forest. The DNA results arrived 48 hours later. The entire Major Crimes Unit gathered inside the conference room as the forensic analyst placed a sealed envelope on the table. Detective Marcus Reed broke the silence. "Tell me we've got him." The analyst hesitated. "It's not that simple." Everyone leaned forward. The blood from the farmhouse, the blood on the bandage, and the blood recovered from Ethan Hale's fingernails all belonged to the same unknown male. "Who is he?" "We don't know." Reed frowned. "No match?" The analyst slowly shook her head. "None. Not in the state database. Not in the National Criminal Database. Not in military records available to investigators. Whoever had left his blood behind had never been arrested. Never convicted. Never required to submit DNA. For the first time since the investigation began, detectives realized they weren't hunting a career criminal. They might be hunting someone who had never appeared on law enforcement's radar before. The investigation expanded beyond Cedar County. State police joined the case. The FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit reviewed the crime scene photographs. Their conclusion surprised everyone. The attack appeared deeply personal. Nothing suggested robbery. Nothing indicated random violence. The killer had remained inside the farmhouse long after the victims were dead. That behavior often reflected emotion. Anger. Obsession. Revenge. But toward whom? Detectives reconstructed the Hale family's final week. Thomas owned a successful landscaping business. Rebecca worked part-time at the local library. Ethan had recently returned from college after accepting a job with a construction company. Financial records showed nothing suspicious. No large withdrawals. No gambling debts. No insurance policy that would explain multiple murders. Their phones revealed ordinary conversations. Dinner plans. Work schedules. Family photographs. Everything pointed toward an ordinary family living ordinary lives. Until Detective Sarah Collins discovered one overlooked detail. 3 weeks before the murders, Rebecca Hale had called the sheriff's office. Not 911. The non-emergency number. She reported seeing an unfamiliar pickup truck parked near their property several nights in a row. The deputy who responded searched the area. Nothing was found. The report had been filed away. Forgotten. Now it became the most important document in the case. Investigators canvassed every business with surveillance cameras along the county roads. Hours became days. Thousands of vehicles passed before technicians finally located the same dark pickup. This time, however, one camera captured a clearer image. A dent above the rear wheel. A missing front license plate. A faded hunting club decal on the rear window. Detectives circulated the image statewide. Within hours, a call came from another county. A mechanic recognized the truck. "I serviced one just like that last month." The owner? Caleb Turner, 36 years old. Former Army combat engineer. Worked private security after leaving the military. Owned land just 15 miles from Briar Hollow. No criminal record. No known connection to the Hale family. Yet, detectives obtained a search warrant. Turner's property appeared deserted. The pickup truck sat inside an open barn. Its rear tire matched impressions collected outside the Hale farmhouse. Inside the truck, investigators found blood. Human blood. The laboratory worked overnight. The results returned the following afternoon. The blood belonged to Caleb Turner. It matched the unknown DNA recovered at the crime scene. Sheriff Bennett immediately signed an arrest warrant. The manhunt began. Turner had vanished. Neighbors claimed they hadn't seen him in days. His cell phone was switched off. His bank accounts remained untouched. No passport activity. No border crossings. It was as though he had disappeared into thin air. Detective Reed believed otherwise. He didn't plan to run forever. He planned to survive long enough for us to stop looking. The search stretched across 3 states. Helicopters searched forests. Tracking dogs followed old trails before losing the scent. Volunteers combed abandoned hunting camps. Nothing. Weeks passed. Public pressure mounted. News stations aired nightly updates. The Briar Hollow murders became national headlines. Then, a woman walked into a sheriff's office nearly 200 miles away. Her hands trembled as she placed a photograph on the counter. "I think I know your suspect." The picture showed Caleb Turner standing beside another man. Detective Reed immediately recognized the second face. Thomas Hale. The room fell silent. How could they know each other? The woman explained. Years earlier, both men had worked overseas as private contractors protecting humanitarian supply convoys. They were close friends. So what happened? I don't know. But Caleb changed after one mission. He stopped talking to everyone. He became paranoid. He believed people were hiding things from him. She paused. He blamed Thomas. Investigators reopened military contracting records. Buried among thousands of pages, they found reports describing an ambush overseas. Several contractors had died. An internal investigation cleared everyone involved. Except, anonymous statements suggested someone had leaked convoy routes. No evidence ever proved it. The case was closed. But Caleb Turner apparently never believed the official findings. Psychologists assisting investigators developed a theory. Years of untreated trauma. Isolation. Growing paranoia. A belief that Thomas Hale had betrayed him. Whether true or false no longer mattered. Caleb believed it. Sometimes, belief alone becomes motive. Nearly 6 weeks after the murders, A park ranger spotted fresh footprints leading toward an abandoned fire lookout tower inside Black Pine National Forest. SWAT teams surrounded the area before sunrise. The tower stood nearly 60 feet above the trees. Detective Reed used a loudspeaker. "Caleb, it's over. We know you're up there." Several minutes passed. Then, a voice answered. "I never wanted Rebecca. I never wanted Ethan. I only wanted Thomas to tell the truth." Reed looked towards Sheriff Bennett. This was the first confirmation that Turner was alive. Negotiators spoke with him for nearly 3 hours. Turner insisted Thomas had caused the deaths of innocent men years earlier. Investigators knew no evidence supported his claims. But inside Caleb's mind, the accusations were real. The conversation remained calm until a helicopter passed overhead. Turner panicked. Gunfire erupted. Officers took cover. SWAT members rushed the tower. The exchange lasted less than 30 seconds. When it ended, Caleb Turner lay critically wounded. He was airlifted to a trauma center. He died that evening. The case appeared closed. The killer was dead. His DNA matched the crime scene. His truck matched surveillance. His blood linked him directly to the farmhouse. But Detective Reed still had one unanswered question. Why move the bodies? The answer arrived months later. Crime scene reconstruction specialists completed a final analysis. Thomas Hale had died first. Rebecca attempted to shield Ethan. After killing them, Turner arranged their bodies together inside the bedroom. Investigators believed it reflected guilt, perhaps even regret. The same man capable of unimaginable violence had paused long enough to place the family side by side before leaving. No one could explain why. Years later, first responders still spoke quietly about Briar Hollow. Deputy Mercer admitted the farmhouse remained the only scene he wished he could forget. Crime scene technicians said they had never encountered another investigation that affected so many experienced officers. Detective Reed retired 2 years later. When asked during an interview which case stayed with him the longest, he answered without hesitation. Briar Hollow. Not because it was the bloodiest, but because it reminded us that monsters don't always look like monsters. Sometimes, they look like old friends. The farmhouse was demolished the following spring. The land returned to silence. Wild grass slowly covered the foundation. The gravel driveway disappeared beneath weeds. Travelers passing Briar Hollow Road today would never know what happened there. No marker stands beside the road. No memorial identifies the place. Only those who responded that October morning remember the farmhouse that changed their lives forever. And every autumn, when the morning fog settles over the fields, some deputies still find themselves slowing their patrol cars as they pass the empty property. Not because they expect to find evidence, but because some crime scenes never truly leave the people who answered the call.